Hey, this is Sarah from My Montana Kitchen, and welcome back to my channel. Here on my channel, I help you demystify sourdough. And the internet has way overcomplicated it, so I'm here to help you wade through all the noise and show you just how easy, simple, and maintainable sourdough can be in your life. The single question that I get asked the most often on my sourdough videos or sourdough blog posts is, how do you make your own starter, or where do you get a starter? So I have often referred people to getting a starter from a friend or buying a starter at farmers market. You can even look on Facebook Marketplace, places like that, and there are people who are selling their sourdough starter. But so many of you have wanted to know, how do I start a sourdough starter from scratch, from nothing? So that's what this video is all about. I'm gonna start at day 1, and we're gonna go as many days as it takes until we can bake bread. And I'm gonna show you every single step along the way. So what I have done, I have recorded all of these in a social media format, and I'm just gonna play each one of those for you so you can see from day 1, again, all the way through however many days it takes until we are ready to bake bread. And then you can follow the same simple steps. And I'm also gonna give you tips at the end for suggestions if something's not working, something different you can try. And I'm gonna tell you the different things that I tried as I move through the process. So are you ready to see how you can make your own sourdough starter from scratch? I am, so let's get started. This is day 1 of creating a brand new sourdough starter from scratch. I've actually never made my own sourdough starter before, so I'm really excited to try it and see how it turns out so I can use it in my own kitchen. So all I'm going to do is add 25 grams of filtered water to my wet jar, and then I'm going to add 25 grams of all-purpose unbleached flour. Now you can use whole wheat flour, you can use rye flour, and I've actually heard that those are better for starting a sourdough starter, but I didn't have those on hand, so I just went with all-purpose flour. It's readily available. Then I just mix it up really well, and that's all. So I do need help naming this sourdough starter though. My starter now is named Alfred Humphrey, and I need name ideas for this new sourdough baby. So put it in the comments below. What should I name it? Come back tomorrow for day 2 of this brand new sourdough starter. Welcome back to my sourdough starter journey. I'm creating my very own sourdough starter. The starter I currently have, I got from someone else. So after 3 years, I figured it's probably time to try making my own. So just like we did yesterday, today we're going to add 25 grams of all-purpose unbleached flour and 25 grams of filtered water. No, I did not discard anything. If you have watched some of my other sourdough videos, you know I have a no discard method. And so I'm just going to try this as we're creating the starter as well. Why dump out some of it? I have a big enough jar. So no, I did not discard anything. I just added the 25 grams of flour and 25 grams of water right to what was already in the jar. So easy, so easy. I do still need a name. I'm thinking a girl's name because my starter now is named Alfred Humphrey. So I think maybe we need a girl's name. So drop your comments below and let me know what you think I should name it. And then come back tomorrow for day 3. Here we are on day 3 of making a brand new sourdough starter from scratch. And just like the other days, I'm simply going to add 35 grams of unbleached all-purpose flour and 35 grams of filtered water. Then I'm just going to stir it together. Again, I didn't discard anything today. I'm just adding to what's already there. And as you can see at the beginning, there's already a few little bubbles starting to form. So there's some action starting to happen. Let me know what I should name it. I'm still taking suggestions, and come back tomorrow for day 4. This is day 4 of making a brand new sourdough starter from scratch. You can see there's a few bubbles, not super bubbly yet, but we're just going to do the same thing that we've done for the last 3 days, and that's add 25 grams of filtered water and 25 grams of all-purpose unbleached flour. I think yesterday I said 35 grams, but I only added 25. However, today I did actually add just a little bit extra to give it a little bit of extra food. I'm still taking name suggestions too, so if you have an idea, let me know in the comments. Welcome to day 5 of making a sourdough starter from scratch. You can see there's a few little tiny bubbles on the top of the starter, but there's still not a whole lot of activity. So today I added just a little bit more flour, a little more than 25 grams, and then of course all-purpose unbleached flour, and then I added filtered water and just gave it another good stir. And I'm just going to cover it again and let it set for another 24 hours. Again, if you have name suggestions, you can still drop them below because I'm still taking suggestions. Welcome to day 7 of starting my own sourdough starter from scratch. You notice maybe there's a few bubbles in there, but it's still not a whole lot. Now, if you've been following along, you'll notice I skipped day 6. That's because I was very sick on day 6 and the video got deleted. So here we are. But I did the same thing on day 6 that I did the day before. So now I decided to switch it to a new jar, and I put in 50 grams of starter, 100 grams of filtered water, and 100 grams of unbleached all-purpose flour to give it a bigger feeding. So this is day 7. I'm going to put the band on to measure it, and I'm going to put the cover back on, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Come back tomorrow for day 8. Okay, this is day 7 of making a brand new sourdough starter from scratch, and I'm going to be honest with you, this is not going as well as I had hoped. It did rise a little bit, but yesterday I think I fed it way too much. It does have a few bubbles in it, so it's not that I think it's dead, it's just not very active yet. It has been cold in my kitchen, which I know that makes a big difference also. So tonight, I'm just going to go back to what I was doing. I'm just going to take out a little bit, feed it a little bit, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Going back to what I had been doing previously, I'm just going to take out 25 grams of the starter, put it in a clean jar, glass, whatever, and then I'm going to add 25 grams of flour, and I'm going to add 25 grams of filtered water. So again, I'm using all-purpose unbleached flour and filtered water. And I'm just going to stir it up real good. And another change that I'm making today is that I am putting the jar in my oven with, it's not turned on, of course, but just putting it in the oven, closing the door, and letting it sit there all night. Hopefully that'll be a little warmer. So come back tomorrow for day 9. This is day 9 of creating a sourdough starter from scratch. And you can see there's a few little bubbles. So something's starting to happen there. If you saw my video from yesterday, you saw that I was feeling kind of discouraged that nothing was happening. But I've seen so many people say it can take 2 weeks, it can take 3 weeks. So we're just going to stick with the program. I, again, just took out 25 grams of starter into a clean jar. Then I added 25 grams of all-purpose unbleached flour. And then I added 25 grams of filtered water, mixed it really, really well. Then I put a rubber band, actually a hair tie, around it so I can measure if it grows. And we'll see you tomorrow. Welcome back to day 10 of making a sourdough starter from scratch. You can see it rose just a little bit. It's been setting for 24 hours. This time I put it on my heat vent overnight, which is not a good idea. 10 out of 10, do not recommend. I guess it'd be 0 out of 0, do not recommend. 0 out of 10? I don't know. Anyways, don't do that, okay? It got a really hard crusty layer on top, so I just scooped a little bit out from underneath, 25 grams, and then I added the 25 grams of flour, all-purpose, unbleached flour, and then I added 25 grams of filtered water. stirred it really well. And then I'm just going to put the rubber band back on, put the lid, the cover back on, and we'll check back in tomorrow for day 11. Welcome back. This is day 11 of making a brand new sourdough starter from scratch. There are bubbles. There are bubbles, and it rose. Not quite doubled in size, but it did rise. Last night I put it in my oven. I had the oven light on for a few hours, and then I just left it in the oven. And I really think it did so much better in there. After yesterday's fiasco of putting it on the heat vent. Not a good idea. So I'm just adding, I took out 25 grams of starter. I'm adding 25 grams of all-purpose unbleached flour, 25 grams of filtered water, and then we're going to cover it back up, and we'll see you tomorrow for day 12. Look at that. So many bubbles, and it's doubled in size. This is day 12 of creating a brand new starter from scratch. It's nice and bubbly on the top. It has a good yeasty smell. I'm going to feed it again, and we're going to make bread. This morning I took some of the starter and fed, I think it was 100 grams of it. I fed in this jar with 200 grams of filtered water and 200 grams of all-purpose unbleached flour. It started right here at the top of this yellow paper, so you can see it is doubled in size. So next thing I'm going to do is check it with water to see if it floats in water. That will tell us if it's ready to bake with or not. But it has a nice smell, smells nice and yeasty. Okay, and it's floating. So that means we're ready to bake. So I'm gonna mix up a loaf of bread and we'll see what happens. Hey, if you would like sourdough to be less complicated and less stressful, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification that lets you know whenever I post a brand new video. Become a subscriber on my channel and you'll be the first one to know whenever there's a brand new video. I'm gonna mix up just a basic sourdough, artisan sourdough recipe. The recipe is linked in the video description box below. So I'm going to start with filtered water. And then I'm going to add my starter. Of course, I have my bowl on my scale, so I'm measuring everything in grams. The starter is looking really good. I'm going to mix it thoroughly. I'm going to go ahead and add the salt. Some people wait and add the salt after it's set for a while, and I sometimes do that, but sometimes I don't. Then I'm going to add the flour. We're just going to give it a good mix with the dough whisk until it forms a nice shaggy dough. Trying not to put all the flour out on the counter. All right. I'm going to cover this with a towel, and then I'm going to put it in my oven with the light on for a little while. That'll be a nice warm spot for it. It's been 45 minutes, so now we're just going to do the first set of stretch and folds. And all I do for stretch and folds is I just get my hand underneath of it, pull it up and over. That's all there is to it. I do get my hand wet, the dough doesn't stick quite as bad. Okay, we're gonna cover it and let it go for another 45 minutes. So I started showing you how I mixed up the bread, and then things got crazy in my kitchen because it was supper time and my kids were doing dishes, and anyways, things got crazy. So I didn't show you all the remaining steps. I did 3 stretch and folds, and then I let it bulk ferment for a couple of hours on the counter. Then I put it in my fridge overnight. Then I took it out and shaped it the next morning, put it back in the fridge for a few hours, and then I baked it in a cold oven. Now I have a whole video on the cold oven method. Do you have to preheat your oven? So that video is linked here. Also, I have an entire video all about how to make a loaf of sourdough bread from beginning to end. I show you every single step and just lay it all out for you. That video is here. But I'm going to show you the finished product. So I actually baked this yesterday, and I'm just now getting to finishing the video and showing this to you. So are you ready to see the bread that I made with my brand new starter? It was like 12 days old, I think, from zero, from nothing, from just mixing flour and water to this in less than 2 weeks. Are you ready to see it? I was so excited. When I took the lid off, I was so excited to see this bread. Look at that. It looks great. Look at the ear on it. I was so amazed. It looks so good. So there you have it. That is exactly how you make a sourdough starter from scratch that you can then use for so many things. I also use the starter to make double chocolate muffins. I use the starter to make dinner rolls, and I use the starter to make this loaf of bread. So I'm going to cut into it and show you what it looks like on the inside. But there you have exactly how to make your own starter. I have another video, a couple of videos, all about how to take care of your starter. I am not one of those people that believes you have to leave it on your counter and feed it every single day. Nobody's got time for that. At least I don't. I only bake with my starter about once a week, so it doesn't make sense for me to leave it on my counter and feed it all the time and discard and all that. I never discard, ever, ever, ever. So if you want to see all my method about that, you can check out the video here, all about how to do a zero discard method. So let's cut into this loaf and see what it looks like on the inside. Okay, here is the reveal. I have not looked at this yet for baking sourdough bread with my brand new baby starter, only 11 days old. Let's see what it looks like on the inside. Hey, that's not too bad. Now, there are definitely big air holes. I'm not personally a fan of the great big holes because you can't put butter on a hole, right? So, it maybe is overproofed a little bit. That's all right though. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that actually for being a brand new starter. As my starter matures, the bread will look a little different, and that's okay. But for a brand new starter, I'm really happy with that. So as you can see, when I began my sourdough starter, I was gonna do a no discard method. That's what I do for when I'm taking care of my starter, my mature starter. I never discard. So I was gonna try that method when I was creating a starter. But as I got a few days in, it was starting to just get really gunky, and I decided to just start in a new jar. So I took some out and added it to a new jar. So I did discard on that day. Then a few days later, it was pretty cold in my kitchen. It's March when I'm filming this video in Pennsylvania. And so therefore, you know, it's kind of cold in my kitchen. 67 degrees is what we have the thermostat set at. So that's not ideal for a starter. So one night I put it on the heat vent and I thought I killed it because it got all crusty on top, and I told my husband, I'm like, oh, I think I killed it. But I didn't. I just scraped off the crusty part, got 25 grams out from underneath of that, fed it, and it was fine. But I didn't put it on the heat vent again. It was too hot. So the next thing I did, excuse me, is I put it in my oven with the oven light on for a few hours. And then I just left it in the oven overnight. Obviously the oven's not turned on, so there's no heat, but it's a protected environment. There's no drafts, and it's a little bit warmer in there, especially if you leave the light on for a couple of hours. And that really started to help it. I mean, that plus we were already at like day 9, 10, 11. And I think day 11 is whenever it was really active and bubbly. So I would recommend that from the beginning. If it's not super warm in your kitchen, I've read that the optimal temperature is 75 to 80 degrees. Most people aren't going to have their kitchen 75 to 80 degrees. So put it in your oven with your light on for a few hours and just let it sit there. Just don't forget that it's in there and turn your oven on to preheat and bake your baby starter. That would be really sad. So you don't want to do that. So that's what I did. I started it on the counter, but then about partway through, I moved it to the oven and let it set in the oven overnight. And I think that helped also. Another tip, I used all-purpose unbleached flour. I've seen multiple people say using rye flour or whole wheat flour, even on just day 1, really jumpstarts your starter. I've not personally tried that, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it. So I believe it's true. If you really want to give it a jump start, use rye flour or use whole wheat flour. And you don't have to stick with rye or whole wheat for the whole entire time. In fact, one video I watched, she just fed it whole wheat flour on day 1. And on day 2, she moved to all-purpose flour and kept using all-purpose flour the rest of the time. But the whole wheat or the rye will kind of jumpstart it, and you likely will have an active starter before day 11, like I did. All-purpose flour seems to be the weakest flour for creating a new sourdough starter. I've seen people say they use bread flour. So it's really up to you what you use. I showed you how to do it with the weakest one, so you can see exactly how you could do it at home with the worst case scenario, if you want to say it that way. But use rye, use whole wheat, or use all purpose. It doesn't matter. Honestly, if you've been in my channel very long, you know that I don't think sourdough has to be hard. I'm here to make it as easy as possible for you to make sourdough in your own kitchen. It's so easy to look at the internet and see all the things. Or if you're in a sourdough Facebook group, all the things. And people say you have to do this and you have to do that. No, that's not my method. So if that works for you and you want to do that, that's totally fine. And again, if you've been here for very long, you've heard me say, could I do all those things and make better bread? Yes, I probably could. But also, is what I'm doing now good enough? Yes, it is. I enjoy the process. It's not stressful. It doesn't take over my life. My family enjoys the bread. That's all that matters to me. So if that's what matters to you and you just want to keep things simple, join us here at My Montana Kitchen. Get a sourdough starter. Make your own sourdough starter. Just dive in. If you keep waiting, you're going to be paralyzed by all the information. Just dive in and get started. And if you don't want to do it for a while, it just goes in your fridge and I promise you it'll be fine. So thank you for watching this video. If you've stuck to the very end, thank you so much. You deserve a gold star or a high five. I'll give you a high five. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you create your own starter following these steps, let me know in the comments and then let me know what you name it. I totally forgot to tell you what I named her. All right, hold on a second. All right, her name is here on the jar. I named her, now is this backwards? Betty Bubbles. Betty Bubbles, that's what I named her. You can see she's been in the fridge for a couple of days and she still has a lot of bubbles in there. So she is nice and active even though she's been in the fridge. She's doing well. So I have Betty Bubbles and have Alfred Humphrey as my mature starter. So there you go. Let me know what you name your starter in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I'll see you next time.